Everybody, it's the North End. Get ready for it. Here we go.
This is the North End. This is the North End.
Hey, Paul. I'm interrupting here. I'm introducing
I'm
myself.
on mute.
Yes,
I was on mute the entire time.
I had to hop
Like
in
we
there.
rehearsed.
He doesn't know. He's on.
This is why we have rehearsals, people. This is why we have rehearsals, people.
No, I'm
It's
here
the Premier
earlier
League
than usual.
fan show known as the North End. High production value, high amount of professional category, quality YouTube channel stuff. It's me, Paul Forrest. It's him, Brian Ireland. How are you, Brian Ireland?
I'm good, sir. How are you, man? It's when it comes to football, I'm indifferent, but happy otherwise.
I'm indifferent. You know who's not indifferent? I'll tell you. It's Azaz. It's Azaz who's not indifferent.
May, I'm not indifferent about that NWO t-shirt. That's fire. That is fire right there. Yeah,
well,
old school wrestling. Oh shit! Everyone's bringing 90s heat right now.
Yeah, we're busting it.
Can I tell you something that's a secret shame and a source of pride for me?
Go on.
This is original.
Oh, that is worth.
Like this was a buddy of mine named Tony Hollywood Cruz, because we all had wrestling nicknames. In the early days of Hollywood Hogan emerging and NWO being a thing and these t-shirts being a thing, he organized an order of 20 of these shirts from the States so that a bunch of kids in a Brother Andre Catholic High School could walk around going, too sweet, like a bunch of fucking losers. It's the one t-shirt I'm never going to lose, and I will keep it forever. And my son will steal it one day, and I will fucking steal it back.
And you'll smash a steel chair over his head. And take it back.
Yes. You know what? Segue of the day. Speaking of smashing steel chairs over heads, Chelsea superfan Eric, how are you, buddy?
What's up, Eric?
Guys, thanks for having me. Looking forward to today's show.
Oh my God, it's always a pleasure, man. Always a pleasure. You're the one doing us the favor, is what people will say. And I don't know if they're right. I don't know if they're wrong, but they'll say it all the same. Gentlemen, well, where do we start? The Premier League. What a fucking league, man. What a league. I think maybe start talking through the standings, have a little peek, see at that, and see how it goes. Okay. The race at the bottom is still it's a gong show still. Let's be completely clear here. Like, I think, yes, there's a huge title push, but I expect the combinations of the three teams at the bottom of the Premier League to continue to change. I don't even know if Southampton are going to be there the entire rest of the season. I can see them popping out, coming back down. Have you guys seen anything? Have you learned anything? You guys have any feelings towards which teams you think are inevitably going to be, sucked into that drop, or which teams you think have maybe recently shown enough to be like, I think they're going to make it?
I wouldn't mind just chucking in a little bit about Leeds here in their last couple of games at home. They've shipped, I think it's 12 or 13 goals, or is it 5 and 6, 11 goals in the last 2 games?
Yeah.
That at home, I know it's Liverpool. Liverpool can score 6 goals in a game. Ask Paul, but it's difficult to see Leeds improving their situation. I see them being in that conversation of going down. I don't see Southampton getting out of this situation, being on the points that are. It's just it's a long way to go. Leicester, ooh man, I mean, who's managing that club right now? Do they have enough quality? There's quality in that side, but do they have enough quality that care to try to take them out of it, or have they moved on to their future clubs? I don't know. It's a mess down there. Like you said, you could see a few different teams there, but I do think Southampton, Leeds, and probably Forest are in that bottom three for me.
Has anybody seen enough out of Everton and West Ham to suggest that they are not as garbage as they've been this season, and that they will all of a sudden remember that they're not fucking complete shit?
Let me go. Let the Liverpool.
Oh, here he goes.
Let me go. let me go. So Everton's fixtures are ridiculous coming up. Now, they've still got to play Newcastle. They've still got to play City. They've still got to play Brighton away. There's some winnable games in there as well. But, like, the season is getting, like, it's just eating away, right? Like, look at all that. It's like 7 games left. So I just said 3 or 4 games where they're very unlikely to get a point. Now, the Premier League being what it is, anyone in the end can beat anyone. We've seen that happen. But, like, I don't know, people, like, teams are running out of time. It's easy to think that, you know, like, the penny might drop for some of these teams. But, like, I'd rather have points on the board, man. Like, I think, like, anyone, it depends on the fixtures. It just depends on the fixtures. If you're not at 30 already, you're in deep shit.
Yeah, that bottom 5 is really, I think when you, sorry to interrupt, I know Eric probably wants to add to this too, but I think that West Ham, we saw against Arsenal, there's enough there probably, but the 5 teams below that I think are struggling. Eric, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd ask the question of, do any of us think there's no way this doesn't go down to the last day? Maybe Southampton falls away, maybe Forest might drop in, but it's going to be 3-4 teams fighting for one spot probably last day. Like, there's no way it's not going to happen. West Ham haven't shown much to say they're going to go on any half normal run. Everton, same thing. They'll probably squeak out some results, but I don't see anybody other than Southampton probably drops out. Leicester is maybe a little behind the 8 ball, but it's going to be 5 or 6 down there coming last 2 weeks for sure.
Okay. So I think you're completely right. It'll come down to last day for almost every single race, the drop and the title, maybe. But top 6, top 4. So let's go up the table here. Aston Villa. And obviously we have a lot of Aston Villa fans who watch us because we've got 2 great Aston Villa supporters who make regular content on this channel. Aston Villa have one of the hottest strikers in the Premier League and Europe, who in any regular season would be fucking leading the way for all stories. He just happens to be, you know, in the shadow of Haaland, and
he's better form than Haaland and Kane at the moment. Like, he's on
wow.
No, he is form-wise since the new year. So he's got 14 goals and assists in total. Haaland's on like 11 and Kane's on 10. So
has Ollie vaulted himself to the big striker conversation in the summer?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Aston Villa fans get very excited about it. Personal correction, I just still think, I mean, Haaland's form is retarded. Like, Champions League has to be a factor. Like, his goal scoring is ridiculous.
I'm
just
just
the reason why
about
nobody's noticing Ollie right now. And if you're Aston Villa, you might actually like be okay
probably
with
be
that.
Happy about it. Yeah.
Like,
you might not go somewhere quickly, right?
Yeah. But if they're going to finish in the top 6 or the top 4 this season, and they have a chance based on form, the way they're playing right now under Emery, the defense is a brick wall. They're scoring goals. They're not just playing well, they're playing well with style.
Yeah.
I personally don't think they have what it takes. I think Brighton have already got enough in the bag in terms of points to have the advantage.
Couple games in hand for Brighton as well, too, right?
But I mean, you never know. But I mean, the one thing I'm going to say is, if this is what Emery can do, taking over a club, like, what happens when he has the backing of the board in the summer and he has a full summer training session with these lads? He gets to bring in some of the players. I'm sure he's going to bring in his own players. He probably knows well. How does this affect the league? Because this is where the new reality of the Premier League is dawning. I think you've got 6 to 7 teams who are the big clubs, and then you've got every opportunity for clubs that have lots of money, and all it takes is good management, like an Aston Villa, to also compete in there. And then you've got your outliers who are just really well-run clubs who will have moments in time, like Brighton. I don't want to fast forward to next season because it's obviously we're still in this one, but like it is going to be so hard to finish in the top 6 next season that I think we all have to start changing our expectations about what a good season is. Like, if Spurs don't make top 4, I honestly don't think that's a bad season anymore. I think it's just going to be a season.
They're going to make top 4, but
well, I guess it's just an example. It's just like before it would be such a failure if Chelsea didn't make top 4. I just think you're going to have seasons where you don't make top 4 now, where everybody doesn't make top 4 or compete for the title outside of, super spenders like Man City and God knows what
beginning to
happens.
look a little bit like the championship. Like what the championship has had for so long is that it's just so diverse as to who finishes in those top positions and gets to go up. And it's just competitive across the board all the time. So that I think that's what we're seeing in the Premier League now. And obviously the money has a lot to do with that when it comes to the TV money and how it's distributed and how these teams can all sort of afford it. But you're also seeing teams being really well managed, like the likes of Brighton and Villa. I think those teams have done a really good job off the pitch when it comes to recruitment and bringing in the right players and of course bringing the right management. Brighton's system, they change managers mid-season and they're better than they were before. Like that says something about the systems they have when it comes to how they recruit and the management. And yeah, they're just doing a really good job. So it's really cool to see. Of course, it sucks for the teams that think they're expected or owed to finish in the top 6 or 7 or whatever it is, but in Europe in general. But it bodes well for the league as far as how entertaining it's going to be. And of course, we're seeing it this season, how entertaining it can be.
I think it will be hella entertaining if and only if Man City stop being so completely top-heavy dominant at the very top of the standings. Like what I just described is going to be super exciting from second all the way to 6th. But I mean, we really need to shake off that dominance that's happening at Man City at top of the table. So let's talk about Arsenal, because this is where I think things will get meaty. 2 draws in a row, 2 games where they've blown 2-0 leads. They're still undefeated in 9 games. They are still fucking doing a fantastic job of staying ahead of Man City. 4-point lead, 1 game in hand to City. Theoretically, let's call it a 1-point lead. Man City Arsenal coming up on Wednesday of next week. It always kind of was going to be Arsenal have to beat Man City to win this title. I am hearing a lot of talk of Arsenal are bottlers. They're bottling it.
Yep.
And we had a pretty intense WhatsApp discussion that I'm guilty of using it as a distraction because my team was playing so bad in the first half. I needed to talk about anything other than Man United. But for me, I get when Brian Ireland says that Arsenal are bottling it, or if they don't win the title, they've done a bottle job. I get it because he hates Arsenal. He's a Spurs fan.
It's not just that, but go ahead.
As a guy who's more of a neutral, I actually think it's very unkind to suggest that Arsenal were ever in a position that they had their fate entirely in their own
8
hands.
points clear is not in a position
8 points clear control when they hadn't even gone through half the season.
You could take any other team and put that in that same scenario.
Brian,
if United were 8
legitimate
points
question. Let's unpack this. I've heard the argument of they were 8 points clear. You've actually said 12 points, and I corrected you, and it ended up being 8.
Well, it was 12 points at 1 point, but it wasn't in January. Right. That was
so they had an 8-point lead in January.
Yes,
not a regular January.
What does that have to do with it?
Because usually, if you have an 8-point lead in January, it means something. It doesn't mean something when you've taken 6 weeks off because of a World Cup. That January 8-point lead, they hadn't played everybody yet. They had not played Man City at all yet. So there's 6 points against the champions. The hardest teams are going to play in the season. They hadn't played once when they had an 8-point lead. They had an 8-point lead for 1 week, and that's it. That's all it was.
They had a 12-point lead for 1 week.
They didn't have a 12-point lead. They had 8 points, and they were waiting for Man City to play.
It was earlier in the season, is my point.
And they were waiting for Man City to play.
Okay, so
I personally do not think they ever had any level of control this season where I would say that they bottled it if they do not win the title at the end of this.
Okay, so let me just chime in quickly on this because I'm going to ignore the 8-point thing in January. Who gives a shit about that? The last 2 games, they bottled. Those 2 games, 2 points, 2 goal leads, and both of them, and to go on to drop 4 points when they had a potential to win those games and control and win the league because of it. They've bottled it. They've absolutely bottled it in the last 2 games. Ignore the 8-point lead in January if you for the reason you're suggesting. But in the scenario when it mattered, Saka misses a penalty. They blow a 2-point lead. a 2-goal lead, and then they do it again the following week. That's a bottle job. I don't care
Right.
about everything else.
Again, for me, and I promise I'm going to ask you guys your opinion on this. I will, as a neutral, I think it's very unkind to suggest that the youngest team in the Premier League, who have stayed marginally in front of Manchester City the entire season, who have done what nobody's really been able to do for a long time, and it's actually like forced them to really step up their game. Yes, they've had a couple of jobs where they bottled the games. Yes, I'm not disputing that. But at the end of the season, if they do not win the title, having not been in anyone's thoughts but at the start of the season as being contenders for this race at all, I would have a very hard time with somebody going.
Is you have a lead, you're in a scenario where you potentially.
Well, what's the degree of having a lead, Brian? If you have a 1-point lead,
hey,
if you
I know what bottling it is, man.
Brian Ireland, if you have a 1-point lead, 1-point lead in the standings, and you didn't win the title, did you bottle the title? Like what's the point total you have
when you have an opportunity to win it and it's in your control, and you lose games or drop points? Because
but it's in everybody's control, Brian. At the start of the season, we can all win every single game.
When
it's in everybody's control.
Games or drop points because of pressure, the pressure creates a bottling moment. That's what we've just seen. They bottled it under pressure. That's the definition of bottling. Look it up. It's in the Urban fucking Dictionary. And it says Spurs
Eric is a Chelsea fan, and
I'm with you, Paul. What's the cutoff time for a bottle job? Is it
exactly
15 to go, or is it with 5 to go?
It's not about the amount of points. It's what happens under pressure. Under pressure, they're failing. That's the bottle job. It doesn't matter how many points.
They haven't lost a game in 9 games.
4 points.
They haven't lost a game in 9 games. The expectation shouldn't be for a team to go undefeated every single fucking game.
They've dropped 4 points after leading both games 2-0. That's the definition of bottling it. But it's like, how is it an argument? It's absurd.
Right. So if they lose the season by 1 point, and they go the rest of the season and they only lose to Manchester City and they win every single other game, how can we call it a bottle job? Like, that's an insanely good
4 points
performance
when they had 2-goal leads in both games. That's how. It's dead simple.
It's just so unkind. Okay, Azaz, what are your thoughts?
Football. There's nothing kind about football.
Well, you're clearly tripping because you're a Tottenham fan.
No, I'm not.
You're so biased in this.
I'm not. If the fucking United did it, it's a bottle job. If Chelsea did it, it's a bottle job. Liverpool did it, it's a bottle job. It's a fucking bottle job. You failed when you were supposed to succeed in order to win the title.
Azaz.
Bottle.
Azaz.
I'm going to say that if Arsenal come second, they are the dream man because they were on top the whole time and they came second.
Yes.
So you're going
dream man.
Bottle
that's the
job.
Dream man,
You're going straight up. You could call it a bottle job.
No, look, it's complicated because the thing is, if we're saying is it a bottle job or not, you have to take the context of where Arsenal came from in this season. If Liverpool did that and people called us a bottle job, I think that they would have every right to say that, to be personally honest. Like, I think over the last couple of years, because we were so competitive with City and we took an 8-point lead, I think that people would call us a bottle job, and I think they would have a right to. The context with Arsenal is they literally came out of nowhere. Like they were
nowhere
shit towards the end of last season, to be honest with you. So
they bottled top 4 last season.
Yeah.
So that's a bottle job, but this isn't.
Yeah. So banter aside, I kind of feel like it's a successful season for Arsenal, but it will definitely not feel like it, right? Like if you had said to Arsenal at the start of the season, you will finish second and you will qualify for top 4, 100% of Arsenal fans would have snapped your hand off, right? Then you have the season and the way it folds out. Now it feels like a bottle job. The only other thing is, and I heard Gary Neville say this the other day, if you give any team the chance to win one game and you can basically take control of the title, any team will take it. Vintage United will take it. 70s Liverpool will take it. This season, this era City would take it. And that's what Arsenal have at the Etihad. Arsenal did it to us in 89. They came to friggin' Anfield and beat us 2-0 and won the title. They did it to United in 02. They came to Old Trafford and won the title. So this isn't done yet. they've still got a chance.
It's an
They've
if.
got a chance.
It's
It's an if, yeah.
And I did
Yeah,
say
and
when I was talking about it being a bottle job, if these two games that they just dropped 4 points in, having led 2-0 in both of them, lead to them losing the title by
I
a
think we're
couple
clear.
of points,
We're
that's
talking
the
about
bottle.
if they lose the title, Brian. I think we're very clear. Like you're
but
saying,
that's
if
the
they
bottle,
lose the
though,
title,
definitely.
having had an 8-point lead in January,
I
bottle.
negated that already, Paul. I talked about the last two games, the 4 points dropped. If that's the reason why they don't win the league,
but
then
you were
that's the
fast
bottle.
forwarding to the league title decision.
Yeah, that's the
I don't want to
point.
unpack your point of view too much more because like you're very clear about it.
Would it
It's
still
a
be a
bottle job
bottle
if they
job?
don't win the title.
Is it still a bottle job if Arsenal, let's say, go on 6 wins, 2 draws, and City win out, or 7? Like it comes
Yes,
down to
that's what
City
Brian is
just
saying. His
running the table.
expectation is that they
just
they
dropped
play
4
at
points from
Man City's level.
2 games with two goal leads that they should have won under pressure.
Everybody
That's
drops
the
points.
definition of bottle. Like
But
when you lose under
Eric
pressure,
is totally right. Everybody
it's
drops
bottle,
points.
it's a
You
bottle.
can't have this expectation where they have to be flawless for the rest
yeah,
of the season.
you can have the expectation of them suffering under pressure and not stepping up when it matters. Missing the penalty, bottle job.
Okay. Well, at the end of the day, it's a ridiculous conversation because it's a completely subjective title, and a Spurs fan will say they bottled it when they, I don't know,
Not just Spurs fans, buddy.
they
There's
don't
a
find
lot of other
parking at the
people who
arena.
agree.
They'll be like, "Oh, they bottled it,"
including David Convery, who's not here with me, who would agree 100% with my point.
But David
I
Convery's
don't want-
point, by the
a
way,
Man U
David
thing.
Convery, let's talk about this. David Convery is one of those guys who said they had an 8-point lead in January, and he was not factoring in the World Cup. He was going by the old rules of what standings mean in January. January this year, when they had the biggest lead they had against Man City, was not the real version of January. It was they hadn't played all the teams yet when they had the biggest
He
lead.
also agreed with my point about the last 2 games, so that's moot.
Well, the last 2 games is they bottled 2 games. Yeah, if you want to say that, that's fine. But drawing 2 games and not being able to keep pace with Man City, the defending title, on their 3rd time around, if they win it this year, I just feel like, again, it's a label I don't think is appropriate to call for this race. Now, if they
has
lose
nothing
every
to do
single
with what
game
Man
moving
City
forward, if they lose every game moving forward, obviously it's a bubble job.
It has
it's
nothing
clear.
to do with what Man City do. They were in control and they dropped 4 points when it mattered. That's the ball.
Well, no, that's not how title races work. It does have something to do with
It's
the
how
team that you're
title
going
races work when you're in the last 10 games of the season and it's required
Right.
to get the points you should have gotten.
For
And
you to sit
didn't
here and
keep
not
bottle.
acknowledge that they're trying to keep pace with Manchester City is
They're in the
problematic.
lead. Man City are trying to keep pace with them.
It's
the other way
Manchester
around,
City, though. They're insanely good.
They had the
They're
8-point lead. You can't just ignore that.
It's very
Uh,
difficult, though. It's
come
very
on.
difficult. Competing
For
with
the
City
youngest
is
team
like,
in the Premier League to
it's
keep
very
pace with Manchester
difficult.
City.
It
It's
is very
nuts.
You're not
It's such a-
keeping pace.
It's
They
such
had
an
the lead.
unrealistic expectation. It's I hope they do it. I'm officially on board for Arsenal winning. Anyways,
Clearly.
here's the new thing, folks. This is the chirp of the week. We're going to start highlighting what we think is the highlight chirp of the week. This week's chirp of the week brought to you when Sky Sports acknowledged that Manchester City want to expand the stadium size. They answer back with, that would be like us making our pizza boxes bigger, but not our pizzas.
Sorry, say that again.
Bravo, Domino's Pizza. Bravo. It would be like making our pizza boxes bigger, but not our pizzas. Domino's, you got me. You got me.
It's a good one from Domino's.
We're available for sponsorship, Domino's. We're here. We're here. Let's talk about the title race in some detail because obviously 4 points is still a lead. Arsenal still have everything to do, but they own their own fate. Their schedule versus Manchester City's schedule. I will highlight that Man City also have FA Cup and they also have Champions League, which I expect that they will go very deep in. I will put money on them winning the Champions League, actually. So Arsenal should beat Southampton. Everybody agree?
Yeah.
Let's not talk about the Man City game because I feel like it's the winner of that game is that's almost like the title decider. Arsenal can beat Chelsea, but it's a tricky one. It is a London derby. Those are unexpected things. I know Chelsea are not particularly playing well right now, but I still think
poor Eric
that will be a difficult win for them. I like Arsenal's chances to beat Newcastle. I think Newcastle are slowing down a bit. Brighton, not an easy day, but if you want to win the league, you got to beat Brighton. And then the last 2 games of the season should be relatively straightforward. Nottingham Forest, who should be on the golf course by then, and Wolves, who will probably be safe enough by the last day of the season to not pose too much of an issue for Arsenal. Man City with one more game to play. Their next game is that title deciding game that we're talking about. So we again assume that that's going to be a critical game. But then they have a fairly straightforward list of fixtures: Fulham, West Ham, Leeds for 15 goals. I'm sure they're going to score 15 goals against Leeds. Everton. Again, Chelsea are kind of weirdly looking like they might actually have a role to play in this title, in that they could be a banana peel team for both teams, as could Brighton. And then Brentford. And then on the last day of the season, Brighton. And Brighton, who I think may be playing for something. Oh, sorry, that's incorrect. Brighton, they have to have scheduled. So the last game of the season will be for Brentford. Brighton will be scheduled sometime in there. So the schedule for Man City will have a double game week. We'll have FA Cup and we'll have Champions League. So they've got a bit of a fixture pile up. Based on this, is anybody looking at this and saying anything other than Wednesday's game, Man City Arsenal, is by far the biggest game of the season?
It's the biggest, but I look at the Newcastle and the Brighton game for Arsenal as those two teams are probably, they need those points just as much. No, they're right there. It's that 4th place is just as tight as that title race. And with City, they've got the guys at the bottom that need to scrape out a point, right? Everton might squeeze a point out of that game, right? Leeds probably not. Brentford's no walkover, and Brighton again, right? Wherever that gets scheduled in. Man City might be laggy. Like they
got a squad though. Laggy.
They do have a squad, but Pep's not even rotating that much anymore. He's almost throwing out the same squad game to game right now.
Yeah, he's found his preferred, and they're all kind of fit and firing at the same level. He's not putting Lewis in the mix anymore.
I think there's a couple banana skins for both teams, to be honest, sitting right there.
Who do you think the banana skins for City are in that run?
I think you could see a 1-1 with Everton, maybe. Chelsea might squeak out some random. Yeah, they could be sitting right in that relegation spot and somehow.
Is it away to Everton or at home? Do we know?
You have to look it up.
Yeah, I'd be curious about that because I do think away at Everton.
It's away. It's away.
So that might be a banana skin there, certainly, because away at Everton is always a difficult game.
And I don't think we can.
I actually like West Ham's chances of upsetting.
Like, sorry, what?
We can't call Brighton a banana skin anymore. They're legit. No. They're a legit side.
That's a tough opponent that will be playing for European position by the time either one of these teams plays them.
100%.
Whereas I can look at West Ham and go, West Ham's an interesting team for Man City because they are so reliant on counterattack. They are so sit back, absorb, and then catch their opponents on the counter. And if Man City can be beat on a bad day, that's usually how it goes. They just get sucker punched by a team that's been sitting down and just absorbing wave after a wave and then catching them quickly on the fly. So I look at this and go, yeah, West Ham were probably, based on the standings, better than where they are in the standings, and a good, interesting matchup against Manchester City. But I don't know, Manchester City are just so fucking on form right now.
I only see 2 games in that Man City run-in that are potential banana skins, and it's the Arsenal game and the Brighton game. Whenever the Brighton game gets played, I think Brighton have enough quality to give them problems. Fulham, West Ham, Leeds, Chelsea can't score fucking goals. Brentford have been on a pretty shit run recently. I just don't see the Arsenal game and the Brighton game are the only 2 teams that are like playing at a good enough level to potentially beat this City team that are currently really, really in good form. On the Arsenal side of it, obviously Man City, I think the Man City, Newcastle, Brighton, I think there's those 3 games are going to be difficult for Arsenal. Obviously the Man City one, we're all going to say it's going to be the decider, but that Newcastle game, Newcastle wanting desperately to make sure they get in that top 4. And then of course, Brighton trying to do the same, at least finishing in Europe. those are really difficult games for Arsenal, and I see them being really difficult for them to get points. The Man City game, even if they lose that game, they need to beat Newcastle and Brighton. I just don't see it.
It's going to be interesting. I think it all becomes a lot clearer as well. I mean, very quickly. Like Wednesday is just around the corner. Like Southampton, I think Arsenal are going to dispatch them pretty easily. I think they should be smashing them. Get this kind of monkey off their back that they've earned with 2 drop points or 2 games with drop points in a row. But imagine being the Arsenal kids, like that team getting ready to play fucking Haaland, who is I don't know if you guys saw him in Champions League today, but fuck.
And they're without Arsenal without some key players in those positions that they're going to need too, right? So I think that's going to hurt them quite a bit.
The experience Man City has is obviously going to take them a little further.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't think any of them are like they could be score 10 goals on the last day of the season to win the title. I think all of them wake up that morning going, ho hum. Like I think they're just like mentality monsters, is this phrase gets thrown around a lot, but like they are just so used to it. And there's guys like Kevin De Bruyne who are in my mind like unshakable, like just super comfortable and confident.
Yeah, they won't struggle with pressure in any way compared to what.
No, whereas you can make cases for. I know you don't necessarily agree with this being an important factor, but Arsenal are the youngest team in the Premier League, if not one of. I actually think they are the youngest.
I think they are the youngest.
And then you've got guys like Saka who are like, that's a super young guy, and like you can kind of see it with that penalty miss. Like there is obviously going to be a nerves thing for that, but maybe they're also like not expecting to be in this position, and they're playing with dealers' money right now, which is another way of looking at it.
Yeah, I just think they're gonna struggle with pressure, like which is what you'd expect from a team that's not used to it. As you said, Man City have the players in the team and the coach that has done this a million times, so they're not doing anything that's different for them. They're like, oh, it's pressure. Okay, this is what we're supposed to do and how we're going to handle it. Arsenal are going to come under pressure, which we've just seen. And again, this goes back to our previous conversation. How will they react under that pressure? What will they do when it goes against them a little bit and they have to work harder to get the result they need? The last 2 games show that they'll probably bottle it. And you know, I like to go back to those 2 games against Brighton and Newcastle. Those are 2 teams that are fighting for those positions, those big European positions, that they're going to struggle against those teams. They're not. If we saw what happened against in the last 2 games, West Ham and Liverpool, those 2 teams are better than, well, maybe not better than Liverpool on Liverpool's best day, which I think they had against.
Brian is so desperate for this bottleneck narrative.
No, it's not. It's just talking about what's the reality of the situation.
Well, Brian, let me ask you a point. I'll ask you guys all this question. It's going to come down to one game, largely. I mean, the next game is the most important game of the season. It may not come down to one exact game, but we can all agree that the number 1 and number 2 are playing each other before the season ends. Man City, Arsenal. Does anybody here think Arsenal can beat Man City?
No.
Now, if they do, I think they actually go on to win the title.
I would agree. If they beat Man City, they win the title. I would 100% because of the level of energy that they would get from that would just boom propel them. I think any team they come up against, they can feel like they can beat, and the confidence will be going through them 100%. But I don't see it. But if that does happen, 100%, absolutely.
Let me change my answer. They can win. They can beat Man City. I don't think they will. I think it's a little disrespectful of the Arsenal season to say they can't win. They can't beat Man City. It's unlikely because it's at the Etihad, and I felt City toyed with them at the Emirates as well, right? Yeah. Like City had gears at the Emirates, which is always interesting. Yeah, it's always interesting to see when teams play each other. And to be honest with you, like we dominated Arsenal unlike I ever expected us. I never expected that. But when I saw that, I was like, interesting. The Saliba holding thing is a really big moment in their season. Yeah, because I don't think that happens with Saliba. You know, like they've got Saliba and Gabriel. Gabriel was being super physical with our forwards. So what they were doing was they were just favoring holding. And like, you know, like he's the guy who gave the penalty away. Sure, Salah missed the penalty, but like there was a weak underbelly for them, and it's right in the middle of their defense, right? Like it's right at centre back. So it's hard because I look at Ben White and I'm like, he's had a fantastic season right back, but like, would it be better to play him centre back so you can't go right into the middle of the team?
Maybe over and above Rob Holding, probably.
Yeah, because that's been my biggest issue with us this season. And I know this isn't Liverpool chat, but really, like, it's such novice behavior when teams are going right into the middle. But then when you see Arsenal and you're like, weak link, target him. So that's where I kind of feel like you're looking at Haaland against Holding and Gabriel. And like, if he starts pulling on Holding, nah, no chance.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, he'll just Haaland will just destroy Holding. Holding is not a Premier League player. He is maybe squad player in that scenario, but shouldn't be in the first 11 ever. And he's always been like a problem for Arsenal in that scenario. So yeah, I think that's the issue. I think if Arsenal were fit, like, and they had their best 11, this conversation would be different. I would not be saying the bottle job scenario. I would say I think that they have a chance to get there. I have been complimentary towards Arsenal this season, and I've said that they play really good football and that their first 11 is very good. I just think in this scenario, when you lose a couple of key players, and to take it back to Spurs in previous seasons, we had similar issues when Dembele got injured, or players like that who are key to the way you play. Eriksen gets injured. You just play differently and you lose control. And we saw that in those last two games where they just don't have the ability to control the game the same way they used to. And in that center half position, it's massive. Saliba has just been so good. He's been epically good for them this season. And that loss is arguably the reason why they might not win the league.
Agreed.
I mean, it is. I'll go back to it. To keep pace with Man City, with the depth of talent they have and the business-like way they go about winning, just chipping away at standings, chip. Like, if the definition of efficiency.
Just started playing well too. Playing well. It's sorry to interrupt, Paul, but playing to their sort of the level that City can play at.
Yeah. But Pep keeps them going when he needs to get them going. I guess that's the thing. So with Arsenal again, and this is probably another factor to why I don't want to be detrimental if they don't win the title this year. Just because they don't have the depth, they don't have the experience, they don't have all the tools that you need to be in a race with fucking Man City. Few teams have ever been built that way. Even Liverpool, when they were able to do it, it was kind of a perfect season because the injuries were so light and just all these things went right.
100%. They had injuries. City had injuries.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even that our season.
All teams had injuries.
Brilliant.
It's been a crazy season.
Brilliant in 1920. We were phenomenal, but like they also had a lot of injuries. It's like, and you can't beat them without that, because it's like it's friggin' I don't want to take anything away from them. Innocent until proven guilty, but it's like playing the Terminator. Like there's no flaws. So one flaw is they get a couple of injuries. Cool, we saw the chink and we went at it, but like. When they're at full pelt, like it's a machine. So I do think that the injuries,
I think that's where Arsenal, I mean, that illusion of that lead that they had was because Man City had some injuries early in the season and they dropped some points, and they were playing like guys like Lewis in the midfield, and like they were just kind of like almost toying with their lineups because they just knew that once everybody's back, they could like step up the gas and go full blown. And I think Arsenal just did a really good job of like doing as much as they could with the window that they had. But as soon as City got healthy, we find ourselves in this position where, we're all collectively saying the same thing. Doubtful that Man City will lose to Arsenal, because on paper, it's a clear favorite should be Man City. But I don't know. That's why we play the game. This is going to be exciting, though. Arteta playing his old Jedi master Pep Guardiola.
It's an interesting one that obviously that's where we are with the type of football that's being played in the Premier League, at the influence that Pep has had, and obviously now that Arteta is having with his he's been able to do it at Arsenal. It's an entire
show that you can have just about Pep Guardiola's disciples, because right now Arteta, obviously, less obvious is the fact that Erik ten Hag was one of his guys at Bayern Munich. Burnley are coming up next year, and Burnley's manager is a fucking Vincent Kompany.
He's done a brilliant job.
Yeah, so it's the next generation of like talented tactical managers are all coming out of guys that have worked with either as players or as coaches or both under Pep Guardiola. So wild times, wild times. I'm gonna move us into like maybe a bit of a transfer talk. I'm gonna throw out one kind of name, and then if there's anybody else who wants to talk about any transfer news, we can kind of like throw out names and talk about what we're hearing.
I do want to get a little bit from Eric about the Chelsea situation at some point. So
sure, yeah.
Well, we can talk about it, but there's not. It's the season's over.
No,
we'll
I know. We haven't had you on.
Guys, we will talk about it. I'll put some time.
Right.
So transfer rumor. This is the hot one of the week. Gravenberch, who is an 8. He plays for Bayern Munich. He formerly was of Ajax. He's a Dutch international. He went to Bayern Munich super early. They had the business was done and dusted by the time Erik ten Hag was appointed to Manchester United. He went for something like 25 million, I believe. Is not playing at Bayern Munich. Probably doesn't indicate if he's a good or bad player or whatever. It's just that they're such a dominant midfield pair right now that very hard to displace. And grumblings that he's unhappy with his current situation, obviously wants to be playing more, had some offers the summer before he joined Bayern Munich, is now apparently open to discussion. Liverpool are one of the teams that are being highlighted as, he's a very good price. He's a good profile midfield player, and you're desperate for midfields. So what do we think of this rumor? Is As happy with this rumor? Believe this rumor? What's going on?
Very happy with it. I don't know if I believe it because I feel like transfer talk is 90% BS, but I want to believe it. I think for us, clearly a huge revolution in the midfield is required. Gravenberch to me fits the profile. Beyond anything else, there's no risk to this because I kind of feel like he's going to kind of come in at a bit of a less of a premium than if he was coming directly from Ajax on the back of a great season. The other part to this as well is we need options because we just cannot keep people fit. So for me, it's like I don't particularly want Gravenberch and just Gravenberch and Mount, or just Gravenberch and McAllister, whoever we end up getting. Like, I think we need 3 or 4 people. And I think for the price and the profile, he fits. Very athletic, very into his like passing through the lines. Clearly, if you watch my Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, I think about 10 times this year I've said creativity is a problem. Gravenberch has that ability to pass vertically. So I'm into him for that reason. Don't particularly judge his season at Bayern Munich at all because Tchouaméni hasn't played. And Tchouaméni, even though he's more of a 6, is still, I would say, ahead of Gravenberch in the, like up and coming midfielders. And he's barely had a game as well. So you can't really judge some of these new players on that. And it also is a really big indicator, Jude, as to why you should make the right choice at a certain stage of your career, because development is really important. And I think you have to go and play wherever you play. And I think that the ultimate destination you want to go to, be it Real Madrid, Barcelona, whoever, that's more of the Latin players, whoever you want to go to, you should actually look at that as a final destination rather than going to that place too quickly. So all of those things. The other thing is I've been really impressed with Cody Gakpo as well.
He's done well.
Martinez, Martinez at United has been a phenomenal signing. So I think this whole thing about people coming from the Dutch league, I mean, this guy's coming from the Dutch league because he's barely played in Germany. I think that that's probably up in the air at the moment. I think has to do with the individual and and that was always the case, by the way. Like Ruud van Nistelrooy, Dennis Bergkamp, like all these players also came from the Dutch league as well. So I don't know if some of those
Suarez
are Suarez, exactly. Like some of these players that come from the Dutch league are amazing. So I'm into it. I want to sign him. I definitely don't want to pitch up next season with Hendo, Fabinho, etc. Thanks for the service. They don't all have to leave because I want options. But like if Gravenberch, but if Gravenberch was around amongst 3 to 4 players, I would be very happy.
So if I'm hearing you correct, I'll give you a hypothetical then, because Bellingham, it sounds like Liverpool are no longer going to be full pot committed on going after Jude Bellingham.
Mhm.
Are you okay with that? Because the alternative would be 3 midfield players. Gravenberch is one of them, plus 2 yet to be determined. None of
Sure.
whom are of the standard of Bellingham, who's obviously super hyped as being one of the best young midfield players in the world.
Mhm.
Are you okay with that? Like, because that attachment to Bellingham has been like almost this preconceived notion of, well, he's going to go to Liverpool. Don't bother talking about him for any other team.
Mhm.
Is
Yeah.
that okay with you now? Because this is like an acceptable alternative.
I'm personally not convinced that everything we've heard or read about Bellingham is the whole truth. Do I think Liverpool briefed journalists? It's possible. It's very weird as well to do something like that in April. Like, we've never previously told a bunch of credible journalists, hey guys, we're actually not going for this guy, by the way. Like, that's a really weird flex in April. The other thing is, on the same call, whether it was Zoom, whether it was phone call, whatever, they're also like, but we are interested in Mount, Gravenberch, McAllister, Caicedo. Like, it's so weird all in. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Bellingham, who's got a very, very sound family grounding within his football ecosystem, wants to stay another year at Borussia. Like, why not have an amazing year, as this apparently rumors that he will be captain next year, and go into Euro 2020s as the captain of Borussia Dortmund, having a stellar season, and then you make your move. You know, there's so many different options here.
He's still quite young, right? Like 20.
He's 19.
He's
19.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he's 19. So
take your time, mate. Take your time.
yeah. So for me, it's like, do I want Bellingham? Yes. Has that changed? No. Do I think the Bellingham to Liverpool thing is actually dead? No. Did I ever think we were favourites to get him? Also no. But if Gravenberch, and I want 3. Like, I want 3 other players as well as Gravenberch. I want 4. I want 4 midfielders this summer.
I want 5.
And
I want a whole new
I
want a whole new fucking team.
Like, jokes aside though, I'm not saying that 4 of them have to be like 40, 50 million players. Like, there's some really good talent available even for free, right? Like, be creative. Wijnaldum we signed from a relegated team. Robertson was 8 million. Like, I'm definitely not saying that FSG we're going to fail to get into the Champions League and then we're going to spend more. Like, that's not going to happen. So, but I do think that, like, we can be very creative with how we get those 4, and those 4 also don't have to be worldies. Like, no one's saying, like, if we get 2 that are top level, like, I would like them to be Premier League proven, and then 2 others, one being Gravenberch. Like, I'd be all right with that. The other thing I'd say about Gravenberch is Jose Enrique, who's like a bit of a social media guy, the ex-Liverpool and Newcastle left back, has also accidentally leaked that Gravenberch is a done deal as well. So he took it off the internet as soon as he said it, but like, apparently him and Gravenberch have apparently got the same agent, and he's like, it's a done deal. I mean, So I think that this one is going to happen personally.
That's interesting. I as a United fan, I'm still kind of waiting for the rumor mill to attach us to him, because it's such low hanging fruit of, well, he's not playing, he's going to go, he's affordable, he's a midfield player, he worked with Erik ten Hag, go. But yeah, it feels like either way, I'd be happy to see this guy in the Premier League. I think he's a baller. Eric, any transfer rumors you want to address, or any subject you want to address about Chelsea at all? Now's your chance. Now's your platform. Let's go, buddy.
There's not a lot to address. Let's be honest, right? Like I just said a few minutes ago, the season is legitimately over. So from a fan,
so to give you a better question than about transfers or about players, how are you feeling about Bowley and this, like his going into the dressing room, and just the what's going on at Chelsea is really strange, right? It's really strange for what you're normally used to. How are you doing?
It's a comic strip. Like you can't actually write this stuff, right?
I thought Spurs were a fucking mess.
It's almost.
I'm feeling a little bit happy at the moment.
You guys probably just know from the chats we're in. It's like he's trolling his own team. It's
so strange.
It's that bad, right? So, I have to hope long term that he's learning, and this doesn't happen after this year, right? He's going to have to be told, just be the owner and disappear, right?
What was worse? Was last year worst with the obvious situation with Russian owner and a lot of the financial like liquidity issues and like a lot of like really scary stuff hanging over your club? Or is this worse where it's just like, this guy's a fucking idiot?
This is way worse.
Frank Lampard is your fucking manager.
This is way worse.
How did that happen? What the hell
I mean, I can go through a million things. Every manager, they've all done the same thing.
In 17 matches that he gets appointed as Chelsea manager.
They can't stick to an 11. Not one manager could pick a starting 11. The lineup changes, the formation changes. We've got 37 guys training. They made the dressing room larger. The owner's giving pep talks. I mean, that it can't work, right? It's impossible. So, me going forwards with 7-8 games to go, I think Frank's just got to look at and say, we need to play who's here next year and just develop the talent. Period. Just development.
Is Frank capable of that, though?
I don't think so. No. So I don't think
that's
so.
What I wonder. I'm so. It's baffling. Of course, we're in a manager search at Spurs as well. So I find it strange that a team like Chelsea that we know so well with Chelsea and how they've been like under Abramovich is really clinical about picking a manager, getting the right guy in, boom, do it, knock it out. And this is like the total opposite. Oh. It's just this like shit show of like not like you have an opportunity with a bunch of managers that are available. Like where's the Nagelsmann? Boom, hit it. Like for me, Nagelsmann would be the most obvious.
Well,
a few others.
I would say Bayern Munich hasn't actually fired him yet, right? And they want us to pay for.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people like rallying around this idea that Chelsea are screwing up because they haven't got Nagelsmann right away. But like that doesn't necessarily mean that they haven't got him. It just means like they may not be able to bring him in yet, or he is somebody who just lost his job unexpectedly. Might be like, oh, in the summer, let me just sort myself out. Like, coming in now, what manager worth anything wants to come in right now?
No, and that's fair, Paul, and I agree with that. My only thought is that if you're Chelsea and you're trying to right a sinking ship, because that's sort of what it feels like. Totally. The best thing to do there, arguably, if you can, and of course, maybe that, like you said, Paul, it's not possible currently, is to bring in somebody who's going to galvanize this squad of players and then determine which of the players that he wants in his side and how are they going to move forward and make them back into this sort of winning mentality that the Chelsea team has always had, seemingly has lost completely. That
you can also do
goals anymore. It's like it's
I've
bizarre.
seen my own club do, which you bring in somebody that the fans won't boo. You bring in somebody that the fans will.
Which is the Ollie situation, right?
We'll pad it a little bit. It's like a PR appointment. It doesn't mean like Frank Lampard's a complete idiot.
But
he probably can manage them relatively well towards the end of the season.
Ollie won some games. I just don't see Frank Lampard has won one
Brian,
game.
you just said it right. What manager would come to our squad this year and just ruin his name in 2 months, right?
But I don't think that happens in 2 months. Like if you're Nagelsmann, you don't come in to Chelsea and ruin your name for 2 months of a shit show. You come in and you like impose yourself on what's going to happen moving forward, and whatever happens in this season doesn't matter. And I think that's what I would think.
It's hard with 30 guys, and we're
fair. And it's a large squad,
and
it's a bloated squad,
and you can't score a goal, and you
don't have a striker.
By his last week, he's going to get everybody's names right.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, all of those things are true. I just find it comical. Because, of course, I'm a Spurs fan, it makes it even more comical that this Chelsea side, this Chelsea team, this juggernaut of a club that under like very rich ownership in both scenarios is completely shitting the bed when it comes to where they should be and what they should be doing.
I love how happy Brian is in this.
I know.
I got nothing to Spurs.
Honestly, that's what usually sets me off. It's like when he calls in like bottlers and it's Arsenal, I'm just like, fucking Spurs fans, here we go. And he's like, he's relishing the collapse of Chelsea. I'm just like, fucking Spurs fans.
Hey, we got nothing else. We don't win titles. We watch our fucking teams that we hate lose and shit the bed. That's satisfying. That's not satisfying. We don't have anything else, and it's sad to say, but that's the reality.
I just love your smile
Eric,
today.
I'm so happy you're suffering.
The suffering ended yesterday. Let's be honest. My suffering ended yesterday. I can literally watch the rest of the league now, and just kind of laugh at my squad.
Yeah,
to be
because
honest.
the
Eric
Champions League
also
was-
watches a lot of golf. He's fine.
He's
I
got
watch
other
a lot of
things.
sports, but
I
I
just
I,
changed the channel.
Yeah.
I
He's-
can change
Are
it.
you a
I
Leafs
can-
fan, Eric? As
I
well?
was just going to say the same thing.
Paul just said it. I can change the channel now.
7-3 last night, which was
He's
pretty
good.
brutal.
Oh, it was
But
terrible.
speaking of
last night.
changing the channel, this comment about Bowley being like
It's
Ted
so
Lasso.
true, though.
I'm just going to point it out.
No.
Watch Ted Lasso. That man's a leader of men.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
actually
he's-
much better than Bowley.
Give Ted. I'm
Yeah.
not saying give Bowley credit. I'm saying give Ted Lasso more credit than this.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah,
You know
Ted
Bowley is the owner of West Ham. That's Bowley.
No,
Well,
Bowley
in
is
the show.
Mannion, Rupert Mannion. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
name. Rupert.
Rupert.
Yeah.
fucking Rupert.
New
What a-
episode tonight.
what a-
I haven't watched it yet. I'm
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
dick.
Yeah.
My wife and I are on the like let the episodes accumulate before we go, and
Fair,
I
fair.
feel like we're at the point right now where like I think we've done it enough.
Yeah, you should just get into it. It's
Let's
great.
start watching. Let's
Season's
start
been
watching.
brilliant so
Something.
far.
If I could watch Mandalorian week to week, that's a different show.
Yeah.
Okay, gents, that's it. I think big game this weekend. Not everybody's playing this weekend in the Premier League. There's some FA Cup action that should be exciting.
There is.
I do think that there's some okay games this weekend, but truthfully, it's all about Wednesday. Next Wednesday, some of us will be recording a piece while we watch the game live from Opera Bob's, which is the Manchester City supporter club of Toronto's home
Shout out to
base,
Simi on that one. Shout out to Simi.
with our friend Simi, who is not only a high up in the supporters club, but he's also the bar owner.
Mhm.
So that should be
Wow.
fun. And I think there's a chance that a fair amount of us might actually get together in person for that one. So that's always fun when we do that. It's sloppy drunk,
Mhm.
especially when we don't have any skin in the game.
Yeah, it's
Like,
more fun in that
you-
case. You're not miserable.
Yeah.
When you lose.
But that's it, guys. If anybody else has anything to say, now's your time to say it. Otherwise,
I would like to say, make sure you like and subscribe. Smash the button below if the first time you're watching it. Hit that shit. You know, we're growing. We're getting some new followers, doing well. Support the channel. Like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. We try to maintain as much as we can maintain as adult humans this channel, but it's a ton of fun. So I hope you're liking it, and smash it.
like and subscribe. Peace out, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
This is the North End. This is the North End.